Yes, I'm David Ferroussat. I'm the Development Procurement Director at Heathrow. My team look after all the commercial and contracting aspects of our run the airport aspect, so not the expansion bit at the moment, so keeping the airport running at the moment. So, a little bit about, so I'll get used to the clicker in a second. A little bit about Heathrow. Well, you obviously know Heathrow is an airport, and that is obviously what our core activity is, not construction. Construction is an inconvenience in a way. So, but really, it's all about collaboratively working with our partners at Heathrow. So, 76,000 people work at Heathrow. Only 3.5 to 6.5 of those are Heathrow Airport Limited people. So it's one big collaborative effort there to really help passengers get the best experience they can when they fly from Heathrow. And we have 4 priorities at Heathrow. So it's Mojo, that's focusing on people. So that's making sure people come to work, they're happy to work in a safe environment. And that's not just our own organisation, that's other organisations as well. And it's all about transforming customer service. So most of you, I hope, have flown through Heathrow, so you want to be a happy passenger and you want to arrive at your destination with your bag, and you also want to do that on time. So that's really important and a real big focus at the moment. Likewise, looking at our costs and our expenditures, so really putting that under the microscope. So we call it Beat the Plan, so that's one of our other priorities. And then also looking at how we can grow Heathrow in a sustainable way. But focusing now straight to construction. So at the moment, we have a team in this current regulatory period which deliver about £600 million worth of projects per annum at Heathrow. And the way we've set this up is with a portfolio team and then a programmes team that look at various projects and ideas and benefits that come up and sort of design those and bring those into life as new assets. That's done by a collection of our framework architects who we contract with under a professional services contract. We then have delivery integrators that then deliver those projects for us. Predominantly, again, NEC 3 and preferred option is target cost, so that's the way we want to work with our supply chain in collaborative way and incentivising them as well. If we need to get to site a little bit earlier, we'll use an option E contract, and it's very rarely that we enter into option A's. And then again, we're supported by various consultants, for example, Turner & Townsend, and supporting my team around commercial and contract controls and a logistics integrator as well. But the other things, the other tools and other organisations also help us manage our contracts. So we use the CMAR tool to manage contracts, and so that we have continual data and information about projects, and we have this very quick communication channel open between our partners and supply chain and ourselves to really help the smooth sort of running of contracts. And then obviously with those also being in a very open book environment as well, it's very important that we have organisations that understand the accounts of our partners and ourselves. So we use another partner, the Orange Partnership, to help us with cost verification and help us get into the nitty-gritty of our supply chain's costs. So that's how we're structured at Heathrow. We've been on a long journey as Heathrow with varying sort of, you could say, vogue ways of working, probably since Sir John Egan, who was obviously at Heathrow in the early 90s, and we adopted NEC 3 in 1993. And my claim to fame is that I worked on the first NEC contract at Heathrow, but the worrying factor is it's got to the point where that project that I built in 1993 is now being demolished. So that probably says something. Does it mean to say I need to move on? And I've been there long enough. But my journey in collaboration and working at Heathrow on construction has been this journey also. And at the moment, we're now looking at Project 13 and obviously becoming a much more capable owner. And if we focus just briefly on the capable owner, and it is important for us as a client to understand and articulate the voice of the customer. So the customer ultimately is the person that flies through Heathrow. So it's all of you in some respects. And what do you want from Heathrow and assets that we may build for you? Again, it's about a value-driven mindset. And again, articulating the voice of the operator. So all of you as construction professionals, we need to understand what the operator wants. There's no good you going off and designing something and thinking, oh, that'd be great, that'll look really good. Well, actually, but it doesn't really work in operation. So it's really getting our operational teams really involved at the very onset of a project, such as our expansion project. And it's so important that those guys are there at the beginning and not there just when we hand over the project at the end. And again, there's other things, creating, maintaining complex systems and actually having the best people we can within our teams, not just from our own organisation, but within the supply chain as well. Just a quick touch on our contracting history, and again, risk has been mentioned quite a lot earlier on as well, and it's about our journey around NEC in the early 90s, and then adopting our take on that in the late 90s to form the T5 agreement to construct Terminal 5, and then working through various aspects of being the intelligent client, really understanding what that means to be an intelligent client, and then moving to where we are at the moment, where we talk about, to our teams, it's about professional collaboration. So it's not about collaboration where some people think that collaboration means that you just agree to everything everybody says and the client rolls over and pays everything. It's about being professional about the way we work together. So it's apportionate and appropriate challenge, and also having that really early conversation about where does risk best sit with your supply chain. There's no point in asking our contractors to put in their contracts potential risk of closing a runway or what the effects of fog and not being able to get out onto the airfield and actually do any work. So there's no point in passing those risks onto the supply chain. So it's really understanding what's best for which member of the team. Again, I mentioned professional collaboration, and this picks up our values as us as an organisation and the values that we share as Team Heathrow across the whole of Heathrow. And every year we have awards that pick up these categories as well. But it's important that these values and behaviours are portrayed not by the people at Heathrow, but also the people within our supply chain as well, and that we work together to these values. So picking up on, perhaps it's been termed as a case study, but let's look at Terminal 5. Terminal 5, although we wrote a bespoke contract called the T5 agreement around Terminal 5, for the construction of Terminal 5, it was completely based on NEC ethos and thinking, and around building collaborative teams. So Terminal 5, a £4.3 billion programme of works, consisting of a main terminal building, 2 satellites, some diversions and rivers that you can see in the foreground, a connection into the M25, again at the foreground there, and lots of other alterations to connect into the existing airfield and obviously aircraft stands. We mustn't forget what went on underneath the ground as well, a very large station for the Piccadilly line and 4 platforms, 2 for the Heathrow Express and 2 which we've actually safeguarded for future expansion to the west. So we mustn't forget also what went on underground as well as on top of the ground, which is easy to see. The T5 agreement, again, it was a unique legal contract, and really the real focus on that was to manage the cause and not the effect of something happening. So it's really agreeing up front commercial terms with the supply chain and then allowing them under a framework to just get on and deliver. I spent 6 years of my life on that project. My team managed the commercial aspects with the supply chain, and there we contracted more at a second tier level than at a traditional first tier level. So we had contracts with the say the roofing contractor, the cladding contractor, the M&E contractor, all at first tier level, all working together in integrated teams to deliver the project. And I can easily say, and I'm sure I think there's a few people in the room who worked on Terminal 5, probably the best time of my construction career is where we could actually get on as teams and professionals and get on and build and not worry about arguing about stuff, especially the commercial side of things. So a really great environment to work, very fulfilling, very hard work, play hard, work hard was what we did on Terminal 5. And again, it's also having appropriate funding of risk and reward and making sure that the team shared in that as well. And also the other aspect of it was we had project insurance as well. So it wasn't just construction or risk insurance, it was professional indemnity insurance as well. So all the risk sat with the client all of the time. And I know it's not particularly easy to read, but again, a very structured approach to how we contracted with the supply chain. And again, with everybody signing up to the ethos around working together. And it's probably the first contract I've ever seen that probably has more pictures in it than it does words at the very highest of level, at the T5 agreement level. Again, what that meant to teams, I've touched on a little bit there. Commitment, trust and teamwork. And the real enabler was exceptional performance. And again, it was to deliver that project on time and on budget, which is what we did. Then we turned to Terminal 2, and probably a different environment here. Terminal 2 is in a much more complex area of the airport. So Terminal 5 was on in an area that could easily be ring-fenced from a construction perspective, whereas Terminal 2 is being built right in the centre of the central terminal area at Heathrow. So logistically, a real challenge. That consisted of main terminal building, as you can see there, with the wavy roof, and then a satellite in the foreground, and then some stands and then a multi-storey car park, and that was the main part of Terminal 2. But this was a time where Heathrow then had a change of leadership, and I say leadership from running the construction team. We also had a change. We were going through, we'd been sold, so therefore we had a completely different organisation. BAA was being broken up at the time as well, and there was a downturn in the market. So completely different environment that we were constructing in compared to where we were on Terminal 5. Although, again, on Terminal 2, we used, I'm skipping ahead of myself again, I'm not picked up on that. We were using NEC3. Again, option C, the preferred option. But what we did on that, we added in some interface milestone agreements as well between the main packages on Terminal 2. So we had one contractor. Again, we went back to more traditional contracting on Terminal 2, with the main contractor delivering the main building, a main contractor delivering the satellite, another one doing the stands, and another one doing the multi-storey car. So it was important we had some interface milestones between those contractors, some quite clear delineation. But one thing we tried to do differently was, on top of the standard NEC, was try and get some level of reward to the supply chain as the project was going along, rather than waiting right to the end. So again, we're talking over a 4-year period. So we wanted to try and get some payments to the supply chain so they could then release some of their subcontractors earlier on. And we came up with, well, our new leadership came up with an award fee, which was a discretionary payment to the supply chain, but it ended up being a complete commercial negotiation every 6 months, and was actually hard work and something that we would probably, well, we won't be probably adopting this approach in the future. So probably one of those lessons learned that that was quite challenging. So something that we're not going to do again on future NEC contracts, and trying to bolt something on. So again, it's this: what do you add on? You could say, for example, these were Z clauses, but so altering the original contract. So, collaboration. Collaboration doesn't just happen overnight. And I think if we'd continued on, and this is a hypothesis, that perhaps if we continued in the same way that we worked on Terminal 5, would our sort of collaborative journey have followed the dotted line, as we see at the top there, or would that collaborative journey done something different? We found that in a new environment, new contracting environment from a organisational perspective, and the change of leadership and the ethos of new leaders, that that actually the level of collaboration between us and the supply chain changed. So I think it had a dip. And then we adopted a new model within Q6, which is our next regulative period, which is what I talked about earlier about professional collaboration. And that is the ethos that we have now. And we're now moving back on that collaborative journey again, working with our current supply chain at the moment with our framework agreements with those guys. So really, to summarise, it's all about that balance. You can have a great contract, so you can have some great processes and tools, but if you don't have the culture and the behaviour that goes to support that, or the common vision or the leadership, the scales are going to tip over to the right and things might not quite go as planned. So it's really important, and that's what we found from our journey, and that sort of blip, as it were, during the sort of 2010 to 2014, was that the scales kept doing this a lot of the time, and it was really a really bumpy sort of journey, despite the fact that we were using an NEC form of contract. So it's really important, as I said, the culture and the behaviour, that you're dealing with, that you've got that throughout your supply chain, but also you have a common vision and some really good leadership, and that leadership really talks about collaboration and really lives and breathes collaboration rather than just talks about it. And also, again, you know, on Terminal 5, we had things like history in the making and things like things that people, even the guys that are working on site, can align to and can and really and focus on. So for me, really, you get all these right, and it really, for me, is that it is the people that make the projects that we construct. So that's it for me. Thank you.